Hey friends, welcome to Lala's Listens. Thank you so much for staying patient. It had some technical difficulties with the last video, but shout out to TaylorRaw for recording again and allowing us to come back to the Aftermath Studios to learn a little bit about him and what he does here.
Like she said, I go by TaylorRaw, even though it's Taylor, even though Raw doesn't really matter, but if you know me, you know me. As far as what I do here, I'm an assistant engineer, but just generally about myself. I mean, like I said, I'm an easygoing guy. Been working in music probably since I'd say seriously, taking music seriously since I was 16. As far as just me on a daily basis and just moving around, moved to LA when I was 20. And kind of just started to figure out the landscape and, you know, how music works out here, how just general entertainment, events, everything kind of just, you know, used that period of time to map out what goes on out here, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how LA works, or like how you get on out here, or how you infiltrate the correct circles. So I spent a lot of time on that as far as the time I've been out here, but I've been working for Aftermath for about 3 years now, but been doing music the entire time.
Yeah. Okay, so like we said, we're at the Aftermath Studios. What do you do here specifically?
So here I'm an assistant engineer, but one of the things about working here is like you kind of it's a very much requires you to be a Swiss Army knife, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the people here do more than one thing, have more than one skill, have the ability to branch out and do more. But you know, it's also very much, I like to explain, working here is like playing for the Patriots. It's like you just do your job, you know what I'm saying? Like Belichick will be happy. So if you come in, you execute what they ask you to do. Long term, obviously looking to like get into like executive production. I mean, that's stuff that I do on the side anyways, but within these walls, it's definitely just backing up the engineers, making sure they kind of, the session flows well. I mean, as you can see, this isn't your typical like, you know, easy Pro Tools setup, just a guy and a computer and you in a booth. You know, a lot of vocal setup. This is a full studio. A lot of the times we're setting up drums, setting up the entire session, if you will, routing.
I didn't even see the full back there.
It's like a big room back there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just the whole studio itself, running it one person is difficult, especially with the people that come in here and the demand and the focus that you may have to look into one thing. The assistant's basically there just to cover your blind side. It's like the left tap. Yeah. Lots of football references, people.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so you do a little bit of everything, but executive producing is kind of end goal.
Yeah, the end goal. I mean, when you work here, work for Aftermath, Dr. A, like that's what he is. He's an executive producer at the end of the day. Like if you look at all the facets he covers, he raps, he produces, he's found artists, he's A&R, he's made executive decisions as far as other labels are concerned. Like when Interscope was coming together, there's a lot of different things that he was able to accomplish along with being a producer, and he's an engineer, you know what I'm saying? So all of that right there, I tell people a lot, this is the Harvard of music, you know what I'm saying? Like the best of the best have come through here, whether it's engineers, whether it's artists. You know, you got your Kendricks. I mean, Drake was writing songs in the room back there. This room right here alone, Michael Jackson was standing right where she's sitting. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the Harvard of music. If you come through this building, you're definitely going to learn
some magic.
Exactly. You're gonna come across magic. You're gonna come across how things operate. And I'm just using this as an opportunity to get my PhD in music and take that to being able to build out my own management company, record label, or Riffy, Rest is for Billionaires. And a lot of people have heard of that as far as like back home, you know what I mean? That's a management company, record label. We do a lot of different stuff, clothing line, obviously, where we started out. But I mean, that's what people know. That's what people know the brand from. And don't worry, clothing.
That's honestly where I first heard of Riffy. I think like on a hat or something, and I was like, what is that?
Exactly. So yeah, we took that and we started getting into the music space. We manage a lot of artists right now. Like giving the list would be crazy, but it's about like 4 or 5 producers, 6, 7 artists, and then just different people we work with. But in order to make that what I want it to be, this is the place where you come study, you come build relationships, you come and just learn. You know what I mean? And my favorite part about working here is that nobody's like abrasive towards teaching. Like you'll work at different studios, you'll break into the industry, and some studios are more competitive. Like they ain't trying to teach you shit. You gotta be able to peep. You gotta be able to just look and understand what's going on. But out here, everybody wants you to be great because we live in towards one person's standard. So in order to make sure that that standard is met, no matter who has the day off, everybody's on point. And that's definitely my favorite thing about being in this film.
That's dope. I like that, like really working as a team together.
Right, of course.
Music is all about collaboration, and that's something that a lot of people, there is competition, but collaboration is kind of like number one.
Right, and I think that's another thing too, is just understanding that there's a time to compete and there's a time to collaborate. There's a space in which you can build your brand, and there's a space when you're competing against other people.
Yeah.
Like, even if you look at the stuff that people I consider to be what I call WWF stuff, but like the different controversies you see in the industry with the Drakes.
What does that mean?
All right, so I'll break it down for you. So anytime
you said it multiple times, and I'm just like, I can't let it slide anymore because I don't know what it means.
The music industry to me is just mad WWF, and like a lot of people who produce and like work behind the scenes kind of feel that way, just based on the way certain things move around. And like a lot of people, you see a lot of different things happen when it's time to roll out on their album, or when they like y'all had plenty of time to really settle beef and handle issues, but it's when drop week comes that we get all the ads and we get all the drama and the releasing of the addresses and all that stuff. It just feels really, you smell what the rock is cooking. You know what I'm saying? Like the camera. Why is the camera in the back? You ever peeped that about WWE? Like, why is the camera in the back ready to film an ass whooping? That's what a lot of the stuff that happens in the music industry is. So like,
that is hilarious. That is an insane.
But it's real. Like that's why I say when I say the WWF shit, that's what I'm talking about. And like another thing that makes Aftermath dope is we don't do the WWF shit. Leave that shit at the house. My favorite thing about being here, on top of learning, that comes with the learning, is that everybody likes to work. And that's the main thing. It's not a clout game here. There's people that go and be working with free bands and Future and all, they whole camp 1 week, come in here, humbly work with whoever the next, you know what I'm saying? It's people that have won Grammys that come in here and will show, the newest person to the oldest person, show love to them. There's people that, like, it's a very warm environment among successful people, There was a period of times where I was in studios where it felt like you couldn't really talk to the people who were really doing it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You had to kind of just bounce around and hear from other people and like I said, be a fly on the wall. But here the work matters, so we're not doing the WWF stuff, we're not doing the crazy rollouts. We just pop up and do something big and then go away. So that's what's dope about here, and it stays focused on creativity and just remaining humble, you know what I mean? Dre was doing like a interview for the Anderson .Paak release or whatever, just like, and he was talking on stage and he was saying like his main rule in the studio is like remaining humble, because he's done everything and he's been everywhere, but he can be humble. So, people who've done half as much should be able to be humble too. You know what I'm saying? So,
I like that. That's great. Thanks for sharing.
It's all love. It's all love.
So you talked a little bit about getting into music at 16.
Right.
Is that when you really started to get into music, or more when you took it serious?
I would say that's when I took it serious and at least figured out what my path in it would be. But as far as getting into music, I mean, it's kind of been a lifelong thing. So, I wasn't the most well-behaved person as a kid, and like when I end up on punishment, mom would take the Sega, she'd take the TV, she'd take everything, toys, all that, but she'd leave me with the radio. And you know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't realize in the process she was creating a monster, because literally I would just sit there all day. I would play CDs. I would ask for CDs as gifts, and I would just kind of listen to records and just kind of figure out how the music shit was like working from okay, this is how they're actually making the music. And this is like back when I was 8. So the first album like that taught me how to like write and put together bars, or at least how music was structured, was 100% Genuine. Shout out Dejan. I actually ended up randomly meeting his daughter later on in life. Shout out Dejan. The Chiefs are trash though. Raider Nation. Anyways, so I ended up getting 100% Genuine, and like inside the booklet or whatever, it had the lyrics, so that showed me how to write bars. And then another just random happening, back in the day, they used to have like the singles where it was like the single of the song, the radio version, and the instrumental. I had one of those for Mac 10. It was Backyard Boogie, I believe, and I would write bars to that too. And which is crazy about that is like I ended up working with Mac 10 later, helping him build out his studio, and I actually work with his son now, so it's just like shit coming full circle with that. But
love to see it.
Yeah, so I ended up just learning like how to freestyle and do everything off of that. And then from there I just always had a passion for music. Then on like some random shit just to like keep in line with where I ended up. The first album I ever bought with my own money was Get Rich or Die Trying, so Aftermath album. And then after I saw 8 Mile, Eminem project, which we're sitting in the room, we're in Medre, another fun fact. But saw 8 Mile, and that shit just had everybody in the yard like freestyling or whatever. So like that kind of got me feeling like, okay, rap is a thing, rap is something I can get into. And then when I got to high school, I was, like that's when it got to the point where I was 16. Same thing, just doing like battles and whatnot in like the commons or out in between classes. People were like, well shit, if you want to rap, you want to come to the studio, we can make that happen. So the homie Tony Huntington, rest in peace, is actually the first person who ever brought me into any studio to record. So we used to go back to his crib and just record. Ended up in like a 4-person group. It was me, Tony, or Young Huss at the time. He's been like a bunch of different artists, but I mean, that's what I know, man. Els or Brett. I don't know. He had like 5 rap names too. When starting out, everybody's just trying to figure it out. But and then DeColo, he's an engineer back home, but we was all in like a situation as far as a group, and that's kind of where I figured out like, okay, music works for me. You know what I'm saying? So when I finished high school, I ended up deciding to go to a school in Phoenix. It's called the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences. I was out there, finished the little recording program. It takes like a year. Ended up doing an internship at Rodney Jerkins' studio because I graduated in like the top portion of the class. So they, looked out through a dope internship. And Rodney Jerkins is like Dark Child. He did Say My Name for Destiny's Child. He's on the second verse of Stomp with Kirk Franklin. Like, I mean, if you look up Rodney's credits, his credits are wild. But I just had to give y'all like the obvious, like, oh yeah, I know I've heard that name before. So went over there, built a good relationship with this engineer named Vito, and he ended up working at Interscope. And then through Interscope, he ended up meeting the manager over here, Paul. And then he linked me with Paul, and then Paul threw me the biggest love I've ever gotten. Appreciate you, Paul. Okay, life-changing stuff. I know you don't get enough recognition. Shout out to the war.
Thinking about like your mom putting you on punishment, but still leaving music was like kind of a nice like therapeutic thing to do, even like whatever the situation was for whatever you got in trouble for. Right. Still like she let music be your outlet. Like that's dope.
I mean, yeah, and it worked out, so I'm not mad at it. Like, I saw where it's like, oh, okay, I understand music a lot better than other people because I'm actually like, it's not new to me. A lot of people fall in love with music later on in their life, which is because your parents aren't blocking it. Like, they're not only bringing you the stuff they think is good, or they want you, like, you get to pick your own music, you get to create your own identity off of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure that happened to you at some point where it's like, okay, no more what mom is listening to, or what grandma or any of that stuff is pushing on me. Like, this is what I like to listen to. And you just go out and find the lyrical content and the musical sound, if you will, that you're able to gravitate to.
Yeah, but shout out to my mom and my dad, because they both, like, my mom's from Chicago, so house music is huge out there. My tío has his whole little DJ setup in his basement, and
so that's where you get it from.
I love music, and my dad too. He had a super diverse taste, and so he introduced us to just about everything. Didn't like a lot of his stuff, but I remember that 50 Cent album. I know every single song because my dad used to play it so much. Outkast, Stankonia,
big records.
Just shout out to my parents.
Well, that's good. That's good. At least they taught you the right way, and they got you on to finding dope music.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, so they gave me a little taste, and then I,
you added to it.
Ran with it. A lot of people don't know the difference between an engineer and a producer. Can you explain the difference and what their roles look like in the studio?
Okay. Well, with that, I feel like both kind of live in a category that's where engineers and producers have specific titles, and they kind of do things that fit in the same part of the circle of the Venn diagram, if you will. But as far as an engineer, you're going to look at, as far as like the main types of engineers, there's a tracking engineer, which they're going to deal with recording people in. There's a mixing engineer, they're usually dealing with the final mix. There's a mastering engineer dealing with mastering of the album, master, mix, final, what the final product is going to be. Then you have live sound engineers, which they usually deal with, like if you're at concerts, venues like that, they're the ones that make sure that it sounds good. Because sometimes you'll go to a concert and be like, yo, it sounds shitty. That's on the engineer, it's not on the people performing. I mean, it could be, depending on what type of files they're showing up with, but typically it's on the venue and their engineer. And then the fifth type of engineer is like a post-production engineer, which those are the people who do like music and, TV shows, as far as the mixing and those, to make sure those are balanced and right. So that's the post-production side of it. And then you look at producers, the way I kind of categorize them or like spread them out is you got like the traditional producer that people think of, which was really just a beat maker to me. Like when people hear like, oh yeah, I'm a producer, or I'm this person, and you start listing out producers like you're, the DJ Quicks and the people of the world, you're thinking, okay, that's the guy who made the beat. Whereas to me, that's a beat maker, but that's a form of production. Then there's a producer that's more of what I call like the executive producer. Not only are they cashing out for everything, but they're kind of overseeing the project. They're seeing how it flows. For example, on that, Mike and Keys were the executive producers of Victory Lap. So even if there was other beat makers on there, Mike and Keys oversaw everything that happened on that record. You know what I'm saying? So that's a good example of knowing the difference between a regular producer and an executive producer.
See, that's a great, that helps me a lot, because even though I know the difference, I was listening to what is that, Gucci and Metro Boomin's tape together,
right.
And obviously they have other producers working on a song, and I was like, how does that work?
Right.
Obviously when Blended on the Track is on one of the songs, and I was like,
right. And even then there's a lot of blending of beat making. A lot of producers will cook up and collab together, so their tags will be on the same song, but then they'll send that package out. Maybe Gucci liked the beat and it worked, as far as oh yeah, that's me and him on here. So that's how it works. But generally, yeah, if there's those projects where you see the producer with them, like 21 Savage and Metro, or those type of projects, usually he's acting as the executive producer in that particular space.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there's a producer that's kind of more, and this is where I feel like you kind of conflate being an engineer and a producer, but there's a producer that's in charge of arrangement. So they'll do string arrangements, they'll do classical arrangements, so they'll arrange the way the beat flows or way transitions happen. But engineers can do that, producers can do that. So that's kind of the space where you see producers kind of looking for engineer credit. I mean, you see engineers looking for production credit because it makes sense, because they're actually acting in a way that a producer would had the opportunity to present it to them, if you will. But those are kind of the differences between the two. And then, there's other titles. There's A&R, which a lot of people kind of just throw out there when they're trying to figure out but really what an A&R is doing is they would be appointed by an executive producer or somebody who wanted to have them oversee the project, as far as how to make it connect, if that makes sense. So how to make the idea that the artist has in his head connect as far as creating it, and then how to make whatever that idea is connect to the masses, because you know what I'm saying, they got to
appeal to your crowd,
right? And that's why DJs and engineers and people who are kind of often in the party space or promoting space actually make great A&Rs, because they know what moves the crowd, they know what people are dancing to, they know what is exciting to people, they know what people are turning off. So those are the way that you find good A&Rs. It's just people who kind of understand how people respond to music. But that's something that they do. A&Rs also connect an artist with maybe musicians to play on the album. They bring in features, producers, whatever, they may oversee that. Some of them kind of just ride the coattails of the project and just, it is what it is. They just get the A&R credit. But as far as doing the job, that's what doing the job is. And then a manager, that's the person who's basically with the artist as far as their best interest is concerned. So when they leave the studio, still with the artist when they, you know what I'm saying, when you're trying to book shows, when you're trying to do all that stuff, that's management. So if you're just a guy that pops up at the studio sessions, you're probably more of an A&R or a producer or something along those lines. But if you're in every phase of that artist's development, then you're more in the management space. At least now in 2021, it kind of changes around, but nowadays people are really invested in the artists that they select because you can do a lot of things in the independent space. So yeah.
Makes sense. It's a lot of different roles too. There's a lot that goes into it, and again, that's where that kind of competition comes in. But there's so much space for collaboration.
And that's the thing, is you got to understand, even like a lot of the competition exists from the fact that a lot of people are creating their own music and want their own shine and their own love and want to get the admiration that comes from that. But as far as how the actual music industry works, there's so many people who are willing to take a step back and do a different job, whether it's just quietly right behind the scenes, or if you're, you know what I'm saying, if you're producing or adding a little bit of production or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of people who do different things. There's rappers who are creative directors as well. There's singers who direct videos. There, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta really look into a lot of the things that put people on. Like A$AP Rocky, he started out as a video director. That's why he directs a lot of different videos, and you see him in that visual creative space. That's where he came from, you know. Having more than one skill set as an artist helps bring you into the space where then it's like, oh, you helped me build my project, let me check out your shit. Oh, I fuck with your shit. And that's when you see those friendships and those relationships built in the industry, is when you find those roles outside of the spotlight being on yourself. Like, you can hum a melody and become a millionaire, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're on the right song. So that's the mentality that's got to be, is that hone your craft, you know, sharpen your knife in many different ways, and be good at approaching music in a lot of different creative spaces. But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to work with people, because that's what putting on is, you know what I'm saying?
Honestly, and like I said, there's just so much room for it. So help your friends out.
Of course.
Tell us a little bit about your favorite project that you've either worked on or been a part of since being in the, I don't want to say since being in the industry, actually, just in general.
Okay. As far as like outside of here, one of my favorite things that I at least took part of was helping the homie build his studio. My homie Berna, he's from Maryland. He had purchased a new crib, and he had turned like the garage into a whole studio, called it the green room. And so basically I went over there, helped him set it up. Just, you know, getting it to a point where it's a functional studio. We both went to school together, so it was kind of a thing where it was like, all right, that's a good task that we could maybe take on and figure out, you know what I mean, how to make it work for what we knew how to do at the time. So it was real dope. And I mean, just the experience and just knowing that I can now build a studio just about anywhere if I needed to. Like, that was a dope project.
How long did that take you guys?
It was like a weekend thing. Like, I came out, well, maybe a little longer. Like, it was a couple of days longer than that. But I came out there and worked on it for maybe 4 or 5 days. Like, a lot of the architecture was obviously built out, but just like making sure the functionality of the gear and everything was there was kind of the main thing.
Kind of like the tech side.
Right. So there was that was, you know, that was a dope project. And then as far as just being here, there's a lot of different stuff I was, you know, had the privilege to be a part of or be a fly on the wall for, and there's a bunch of stuff that's not out, so I'm like NDA and can't talk about, so I can't really say that that's the most fun yet, because maybe it doesn't exist. But as far as like my favorite project that I've just seen put together here and like kind of seen the DNA of was when Anderson .Paak was putting together Oxnard and Ventura. It was just dope just to see his process, see the things he valued as far as his creation, how he picked the records he picked out, and the people he decided to collab with him on. Like, he pulled in Smokey Robinson out of nowhere, and it's just, I don't know, I just liked the vibe that the studio had at that time. So that was just fun, and it was like my first crash course into seeing like, okay, this is it. Like, if you're trying to go from 0 to a Grammy, like, that's the play, you know
he just seems like such like a dope creative, like a genuine creative. Like, he just kind of, like you said, if it just felt like it, like he seems like he brings that to the spaces that he's in. And that's what it is. And it's another thing with following the rules, you know, the man up top, is that he's humble, you know what I'm saying? He works with talented people, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't think he's better than anyone. So that's what just, you see why his music does what it does, because he's just a dope individual. Love it.
Right.
All right, is there an artist, whether it be an engineer or producer or an artist, that you want to work with?
Producer, I want to work with Madlib for sure, just because like I just hear so many crazy stories about how he creates, like doing shrooms and going into bunkers and making beats and just all kinds of wild shit. I'm just like, yeah, I have
that
to.
That would be the craziest, like.
Hey, he's done it, and that's why, like, I got to pick this guy's brain. If you just watch his interviews, you know he's not like the typical creative. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting to see, like, okay, this is how we're getting to this space musically, because this is where this guy's head is all the time.
Yeah.
So Madlib, as far as producers, artists, Kendrick, just because that's another person who's like, yeah, how does your brain work, bro? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get to it? And I mean, he's the valedictorian in this place. He's, you know, he won the damn, a Pulitzer for doing an album. So at the end of the day, it's like he's mastered everything we come in here to learn. So and it's just the understanding of the process. And because he has that understanding, it's just something that's just like, whether it's fly on the wall or whether I'm on the desk or the board or whatever the case, it'd just be dope to see him create.
Definitely. Like I said earlier, this is our second time shooting this video. A huge shout out to Taylor and Aftermath. But the first time we didn't know about I didn't know about a big announcement. Can you tell us a little bit about the Super Bowl, what that means for Aftermath, and what you guys have planned?
See, she came in here for the top secret information. For a boss, I'm not spilling the beans, so you don't have to worry about me being the one to say it. All I'm gonna say is, y'all tune in and just see what he did. Hey, he said get ready for the next saga of his career.
That's what
and for that, we can't even get it. See, y'all probing for like crazy info right now. All I can say about that is, as far as me and my coworkers, all that means for us is we got to make sure we on point. We got to make sure that whatever needs to happen, the standard that needs to be met is times 10. You know what I'm saying? Because he relies on us to be able to deliver to the people what they expect from Dr. Dre. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. All it means for us is that we're in playoff mode. It's Super Bowl mode for us. So that's the most I can say about that. Whatever happens, expect your mind to be blown, because he's a creative, like Superman, genius, all that. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. And then obviously going into the future, just keep an eye on us, man. Don't sleep on us. I know Revolt and Diddy and all them do their thing, and I know Jay-Z and all these people you see us, but Aftermath is always quietly just in the wings working on something. So you know what I mean, tune in. You know that I think it's gonna be dope. So I feel like y'all, it's great that they bring in those two.
Beautiful way to say you can't say shit.
Right. I can't really say shit though. You know, we under paperwork out here. Tap in, please do.
Yes. Yay. Thank you so much for tapping in today. Again, thank you, TaylorRaw _.
Of course, yeah, TaylorRaw _ I'm sure it's under the screen somewhere. Follow me, follow Lala Listens. I appreciate you coming through and, you know, just checking out and, you know, giving me the opportunity to interview on your platform. I think that's dope. I want to see the platform grow. So, you know, I'm looking forward to see where you go from here.
Appreciate you. Thank you for giving us a sneak peek into the studio.
And Lala Listens. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube chatter.
Yeah. Yes, exactly what he said. All right, tap in next time.
Of course.